Hey there LEGO fans! As you can plainly see, this week we're bringing it back to the Star Wars line with this Imperial Light Cruiser, or as was referred to in the Mandalorian Season 2, Moff Gideon ship, kit number 75315, 1,336 pieces. And when built, this looks to me like it'll be a pretty well-rounded kit. Not bad for display, has some play value, a nice assortment of minifigures, and that all sounds pretty great, but I'm going to reserve my final thoughts till we get to the review at the end of the video. And as always, before we start, let's get this box opened up so we have inside, get this build underway, so we can start having a closer look at this Imperial Light Cruiser. Now assembled, here we have our Imperial Light Cruiser. In a large but still playable size, as you can still grip it, fly it around, has some armaments, a few projectiles that are pretty fun, interior scene you can set up, and our 6 minifigures. Some heroes, some villains, some we've seen in previous sets, some are new to the scene, and now let's start by having a closer look at the ship itself. At 22.5 inches or about 58 centimeters long, this is a pretty decently sized kit, and as such they had some room to make some nice detailing, and they did so very nicely with a nice grebbling found throughout this kit. Most of this can be found around the outer edge of the ship's arrow-shaped head. Starting over here on the right-hand side, we can see here that in addition to 2 cannons that are mounted on the side of the ship, there's also a lot of surface detailing here, creating some rather pleasing surface textures. Just behind that, we've got a little docking port where either a ship could dock or connect to a space station, and as we continue back to the back of the arrowhead, we find a little bit more of that very pleasant surface grebbling. At the narrow point, tucked into the side of the ship, we have one super tiny, about as small as I can get, TIE Fighter. This one being assembled of only 7 little pieces. Swinging around to the back, we come to the 3 relatively large and pretty stylish looking engines, all mounted to one assembly, and on the surface and in the back having more of that pleasant grebbling. Now, coming around to the left hand side of the ship, we find pretty much the same as we found on the right hand side. One little TIE Fighter at the narrow point, some more pleasant detailing at the back of the arrowhead, a little docking port on the side, and at the front edge of the arrowhead, we again have 2 more side mounted cannons, and more of that grebbling that we've seen throughout. Up top, we have a pair of turrets, each mounted with a pair of spring-mounted launchers, and are each able to rotate in a full 360-degree rotation, which of course is a little more fun, a little more dynamic than always firing straight forward. And now, coming up to the bridge, it has those very classic Imperial windows in the front, which is graded by applying stickers around the outer edge. And there's not too much else to say about this, other than it is a pretty sturdy element, and you can actually pick up the entire ship from here quite securely. Now for the interior, which is quite easy to access by flipping open the lid of the arrowhead, revealing the command center, which would of course normally be found up in the bridge of the ship. The most noticeable thing in the center of the room would be the large command table, very stylish and it's black, little computer consoles at either end, coffee cup right in the center. A little further back of those, we have two more computer consoles, and just behind that, a clip where you can attach one extra projectile for the spring-mounted launchers. Back in each corner, sitting on the floor, there are two crates, one of them containing a thermal detonator, the other one having a pair of binoculars, and then all the way up in front, we have another computer console off on the right-hand side, a matching one on the left, and between them, we have this little plunger, which you can optionally use to launch a TIE fighter. Right in the little slit at the front of the ship, you can take one of those little TIE fighters that's mounted in the back and place it here, allowing you to flick the plunger and launch the TIE fighter. But I gotta say that I'm not overly impressed by this. The TIE fighter doesn't launch that far, you can't do it with the arrowhead closed, so I'm not really sure what I'd really do with this. If the TIE could be launched without opening the surface and while I was flying the cruiser around, that would be infinitely better. I think a pretty cool mod to do here would be to remove the plunger, add in a spring-mounted launcher with a stopper that prevents the projectile from actually exiting the ship while still launching up the TIE fighter. If someone has done this already and posted it online, please post a link in the comments below, because I'd love to see it. And now to our minifigs, where first up we have Fennec Shan, who I find to be the most detailed minifigure in this set. She has great detailing on her torso, front, back, the arms, just looks great. Then we have Cara Dune, the Mandalorian, this time with a spear. Unfortunately, he still doesn't have a face, which I don't really understand because we've seen it by now. Then we have Moff Gideon, who's wielding a darksaber, a really important piece in Star Wars lore, and ideally it should be a little bit shorter, but they don't make a piece in that size, so I'll let that go. A Dark Trooper, who is a pretty rare find at this point, but I think will be a pretty common figure going forward, as he'll probably be in a variety of sets. And, of course, our favorite, Baby Yoda, Grogu, or the child, whatever you prefer. Having had a closer look at this Imperial Light Cruiser, I would say this is a pretty well-rounded Star Wars kit. At the $160 Canadian price range, this is not one of the cheaper kits, but it's certainly a far cry from one of the more expensive ones, and what you get is a pretty well-sized, pretty fun to play, and decent for display kit. When it comes to play, the body is easy to grab from the narrow point behind the bridge, and whether you grab it from above or below, it feels quite natural flying it around, and you can use the other hand to easily access those turrets and fire it, whatever you wish. As to display, it's sizable enough and detailed enough to hold up really quite well. It's unfortunate the bottom is completely flat, so when you put it on a surface it just kind of looks flat, but this kit would be very easy to hang with one piece of fishing line run under the bridge, or you could of course just build your own display stand. I mean, it's Lego, do what you want. But when it comes to the parts or the components that you might be tempted to reuse for some future project, there is nothing too remarkable in here. There's a healthy assortment of large and small pieces, but they're mostly pretty basic and standard. The only thing that stands out to me as a non-standard piece in here would be the tiny little 1x1 flat tiles that they use for the TIE Fighter cockpit glass. A pretty inexpensive piece if you want to buy it separately, so I doubt anyone's going to buy this kit just for those. But as I said just a few minutes ago, I think this is a pretty well-rounded kit. I've definitely been enjoying playing with it, it's looking pretty great on the display wall, these minifigures make a welcome addition to my collection, and it comes through at a pretty reasonable price point. So, in my books, this kit gets 2 thumbs up.